Welcome, everybody. We are so honored this week to have an award-winning journalist, best-selling author, motivational speaker, host of Good Morning America for many years, someone who hosted 5 Olympics, Joan Lunden. So, Joan, welcome to the Brain Warriors Way podcast.
Such an honor.
Pleasure to be here with you guys.
So I was blessed to be able to do your Facebook Live, and it was just such a great two-way conversation. I'm like, our Brain Warrior audience really needs to hear what you have to say. And you have a brand new book. I mean, funny, The End of Mental Illness came out March 3rd. And then, all the marketing stuff for it just got derailed by the pandemic. But you had a book that came out March 10th. Why did I come into this room?
Don't we all find ourselves saying that? Why did I go into the kitchen?
Yeah.
No, I came here for something.
Yeah. All the time.
And it's such an important topic. And one of the things that kills the hippocampus, that major memory structure in the brain, is being bathed by chronic stress.
Yeah.
And so since my book came out and your book came out, the world changed. And we have literally been assaulted by stress hormones given COVID-19 and then the pandemonium from the societal unrest. How's it impacted you, and what are you doing about it?
Well, I'm kind of that type A girl, if you know what I mean. I've always gone at about 100 miles an hour. And so when the pandemic hit and I realized I was just going to be at home, I created a schedule for myself. And I decided I was going to go live every day at 1:00 on Facebook. And you were so kind. I was going through my contacts and I got to Dr. Daniel Amen. I thought I'd love to have him on. And I was a little can I just send him an email and ask him to come on my little Facebook Live, which grew exponentially. And I'm telling you, you answered my email in maybe 5 seconds. And it was so London. I mean, awesome because, I find that with a lot of, that's one of the reasons I have such great access to doctors, because they know that I'm out here talking to people all the time. Right. They all want to make sure I'm saying the right thing. But and that was one of my most popular live sessions was with you. I mean, how the questions just kept coming and coming because everyone was feeling like they were in this odd predicament of, it's not only saying you're going to stay home, but there was no actual end to it, nor is there even right now. But I just got busy doing things because when I was a little girl, my mom always used to say to me, if you want to keep life exciting and you want to retain your vitality and you want life to be great, always make plans. And she always used to say, of course she would joke, I have at least one big party at home once a year, so I really clean the house. But she was the kind that always said, we're always she always would say, half the fun of doing anything is the anticipation and the planning of it. And I think that that's so important for people today in our predicament, but it's also important in the landscape of aging. I think that that's one of the critical components of aging successfully. You get to that point, now it's kind of called 50 plus. That's kind of there's an adage, what is it? With age comes wisdom, but I think it's true. Or at least there's a serenity and a calmness that all of a sudden comes about that lets you exhale and look back and say, I didn't do so bad. I came through a lot of challenges. And it's at that point that we have to remember that we have to pivot the other way. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about in the book, not just all the crummy, annoying, embarrassing things that happen specifically to women and what we can do about them, because there are a lot of fixes if we just talk about them, but also that sense of, hey, everybody, these days when you hit 50 or 60, you have another 30, 40, 50 years to go. It's not like the old days, and you have to make plans. And that's what keeps you engaged in life, with a lot of social connections and with a sense of purpose. And those are the three things that they say will predict how successfully you age.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, as I think back on my career, the most important things I tell people, I think number one is you have to write down what you want in a balanced way: relationships, work, money, physical, emotional, spiritual health. What do you want? And then is my behavior getting me what I want? And no matter what your age, if you're 15, it's a good thing to do. Or if you're 65, it's a great thing to keep doing. So you're looking forward, not backward.
In fact, we do that. We still do that together every year. So instead of just a New Year's resolution, we do it together as a couple. It's like, what are our goals for this year together? Like, what do we want for our relationship? What do we want for our family? And we start making plans for the year just so we have that to look forward to and to strive for together. I think it just keeps it sort of exciting, like you said. It keeps us looking.
I put it to the nth degree in the book. At the very end of the book, one of my favorite chapter titles, I Want to Be Cremated. It's my last chance for a smoking hot body.
That's so funny. Oh my, that's hilarious. That is great.
You can't write a book about all the embarrassing, annoying, worrisome things that happen all throughout your life without writing it with a sense of humor. And I really let that sense of humor come out as much as in this book, which made it a lot of fun. But toward the end of the book, I take my readers through an exercise that I found. The first time I ever heard it was I was waiting to give a speech, and I listened to another speaker out in front and taking this like 26,000 people in a big auditorium through this. Stephen Covey did this, and he had everybody close their eyes. And in the book, I say, close your eyes and imagine yourself at your own funeral. And here the people are coming in the room. What are they saying about you as they go by the coffin? Are they saying, she was so caring, she was so compassionate, she was such a great friend, she was always there for me, she was the life of the party? Or are they saying, oh, I don't know which way she's going to go? I mean, whatever it is you want them to be saying. And I take them through an exercise of writing their own obituary, and then a much bigger task, writing your own eulogy. What kind of person do you hope to be in life, and do you want to be remembered as? Because whatever it is that you would like to write there in your own eulogy that will be read, and for all you control freaks out there, this is a great exercise because you can be in control, but then you have the rest of your life from now until your passing to work on that.
I love that.
When I did it, I said, I want to be a better listener. And I thought, well, of course I'm a good listener. I'm an interviewer, but there's a tendency, like with a life like mine, I've just had this astonishingly amazing life and have gotten to do so many things, but that doesn't mean I have to talk about it all the time. Like, I'm great at a cocktail party, but I said, I want to listen more. I want to add to other people's stories to my repertoire. And so that's something I want to have more patience with my kids. And I've got 4 teenagers under my roof with their eye rolls and the whatever. And so I have my own little Buddhas to work on. And I mean, I really took things out of that exercise and I'm applying them to my life.
I love that. That's actually something I learned to do. Actually, I got pretty sick at 23 and I figured that out then, because at 23 you think you are invincible, and then you realize, oh wait, I'm not. And so I sort of learned that exercise. Then it took me a while to figure it out, but when things get really bad, I will sort of do that. It's like, I'm going to die anyway, so what do I want? How do I want to come through this? And then I chunk it down, and we taught the kids going through this that are in the house, we'll chunk it down, because I have a 16-year-old who lost her mind when the quarantine happened. I mean, just lost her mind, and she's not normally like that. And so, we had a family talk, and it's like, who do you want to be at the end of this? I love what you're saying. Who do you want to be at the end of your life? But you can even chunk that down and go, who do you want to be? How do you want to be seen when this is over with? As the person who lost it or the person who helped? What kind of person do you want to be thought of? You can either be proactive or reactive. And so we sort of use that exercise, and it's just so helpful. Love that.
I have twins who are 17 and twins who are 15. And my 15-year-old daughter, we came out of, because we do these like really intense workouts. And she came out of it yesterday. And I said to her, just imagine, I said, when we're back at home, we don't do these intense workouts every day like when we do up here. And we play tennis in the afternoon, like we're really exercising. And I said, just imagine what you're going to be like in September when you go back to school. And she like lit up. Because she's going into a new school. Her brother goes to a private school, and she's going to go over there because she's been in a gigantic Greenwich High School, 3,400 kids. It's like bigger than some junior college, some college campuses. Yeah. And she says, I'm taking my geometry during the summer, so I'm going to be like working on my math skills, and I'm doing these workouts, and we're doing all that. She said, I'm going to be that girl that they're going to say, who's that girl? And I said, that's awesome. Yeah. Like fabulous goal to have in your brain. And then you do everything to reach that goal. I was so excited to hear it because I was like, okay, so maybe they do listen to some of the things I say.
Exactly.
Good. When we come back, we're going to talk more about why did I come into this room. We would love for those of you listening or watching, what did you learn during this podcast? I mean, for me, it just reminds me, write down what you want and then ask yourself, is your behavior getting you what you want? Post it on any of your social media sites and then tag us, brainwarriorsway.com. You can also leave us a comment, question, or review. We would love that. And you can get Joan's new book out now, Why Did I Come Into This Room? Available anywhere great books are sold. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Dr. Daniel Amen, founder of Amen Clinics, author of Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And I am here with my friend, Jim Carroll, world-class memory expert. What we want to teach you in this course is how you can improve, expand your memory to actually strengthen your brain. Change your memory, change your life.
Welcome back. We are here this week with Joan Lunden, who needs very little introduction for almost anyone in the world. We are just profoundly honored to have Joan Lunden with us, and we're talking about her book, Why Did I Come Into This Room? Which so many of our listeners actually, that's why they listen to us, right? They want better brains.
That's why they come see us.
That's why they come see us. Exactly. They forgot where their keys are. They left them in the refrigerator. And we're just having such a great talk about really sort of what we're talking about is eternal value. Why do we, on the last podcast, we talked about, how do you want to be seen at the end of your life? And it brought up a funny memory. We actually talk about that. What do we want at our funeral? Which I also want to be cremated. I love what you said, because it's like your last chance to have a smoking hot body. But Daniel talked about the music he wants played, and he wants when the saints come marching in. And I'm like, I do not want anything sad at my funeral. I want them to just rock out to Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses. I mean, I want them to go crazy and party and tell the funniest stories about me they can think of. I do not want it to be.
And we have funny stories.
But really, I do want to feel like I lived a life of purpose, like you're saying. Like, what did I do to help? What did I do to make the world a better place while I was on the planet? But also, I don't want people to just be sad and down. And no, like, have a good time, celebrate my life. So it's a really good exercise, I think. It's really great. So welcome back.
That at the end of the book, I said that we've all heard the poem, The Dash. And the dash represents what you did with your life between your birth and your death. That's the dash. Mm-hmm. And you can work on that dash all the time, day in and day out. You get the opportunity to work on that dash. And then something's usually said on your tombstone. And I ended the book by saying, I wouldn't mind if mine said she was classy, sassy, and a bit badassy.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Oh, you guys should be
My
friends,
husband
'cause
always
I
said,
think that's exactly how I described him.
Yeah.
well, my husband always says, of course, the funny thing he says is, not that I'm looking forward to it anytime soon, honey, but when they do your autopsy, I want to be there to see what that little chip is that you have inside you that the rest of us don't. Because I'm the person that says yes to everything. We're going to take a page out of the Joan Lunden playbook. It is, if someone asks you if you can do something or if you want to do something, just say yes. And then go figure out how to do it. I mean, don't pass up the opportunity. I've had people say to me, wow, you've had such an amazing life. You're so lucky. I said, that's not luck. It's like listening and being open, dreaming and pursuing. And I did a show called Behind Closed Doors, and I jumped out of a plane with the Golden Knights, and I jumped with 101st Airborne, and I took the island of Bayhouse with the Navy SEALs. I did all these crazy things. I flew in a U-2 spy plane at 85,000 feet. Do you really think that as I got on the plane to go to that spot, that I said, I'm not fearful, I got this completely? No way. I would go out and say, am I really going to do this? Sometimes
it wasn't luck.
Halfway through, should I tell them at this point that I can't do this? But then, no, you've got this crew here. You've pounded the pavement at the Pentagon to get this story. Now live it and experience it. And that's how you end up with a fun, exciting life.
Oh, absolutely. And it wasn't luck. You're absolutely right. You didn't wish it into being, you made it happen. And so that's just a really important point that I think, it's like when people say, well, I'm going to positive think, myself into having no weeds in my garden. No, you got to go pull the weeds. So you have to make it happen. So it's not luck.
And don't you think that as soon as you take that dream or that hope and you write it down, well, now it's a goal.
Yes. And it becomes possible because your brain doesn't have a sense of humor.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you wrote, why did I come into this room? What surprised you? Was there anything that you went, wow? Yes,
there were a few things. One of the annoying things that happens to women especially is that your waistline, somehow you're like 55 and you say, wait a minute, swear to God, I did not eat that many Tostitos last year. I did not. Well, as a matter of fact, when a female's body goes through, and this is why we experience so many other kinds of changes through aging than men, because that estrogen level is going down, and that our estrogen and our insulin has done that nice little dance our whole life, and all of a sudden it's not there to dance with anymore. And one of the things that happens is when there is no more estrogen there, for your whole life, your body has been in preparation for childbearing. So it's had extra fat cells on your hips and your thighs so that at any point in time, if your belly started growing, you would be balanced. Well, now all of a sudden, our body's really smart. And when our body says, wait, there's no more estrogen, that means she's not going to get pregnant again. So she doesn't need those there. And it makes those fat cells migrate to your abdomen. So you're right. You did eat the same and exercise the same and still get the expanding waistline. And I had no idea that happened. To me, that was almost like enlightening and a little bit empowering because I didn't have to blame myself for doing something. But at the same time, any weight above your belly button is the most dangerous weight. Any weight there that it can get into your organs and be close to your heart. And another thing I learned was one of the top predictors of type 2 diabetes and heart disease is your waist measurement. Now, I don't know about you. Have you ever had a doctor, when you went in for an appointment, take out a tape measure and measure your waist? I've yet to find a person to tell me that a doctor has measured their waist. A tailor has measured my waist. So I immediately ran out, bought one of those little soft things and put it around my waist. And if you're a woman, it shouldn't be over 35. And if you're a man, it shouldn't be over 40. And if it is, the good news is that if you lose about 8 to 10 pounds, you can reduce your waist circumference by about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches. So the good news is, you learn why your body morphed like it did. So don't beat yourself up over that. But then you learn how important this one little measurement is that nobody told us about. And then you learn what you can do about it. That was what I wanted to do in the book. And I wanted to be a conversation starter, because we all overshare on social media with such detail in our life that it's ridiculous. So why should things like leaky bladder or loss of libido or inability to lose weight or inability to stay asleep at night, why should these things be such taboo subjects? We need to be all talking about them, because what we're not, what happens is every woman starts to experience these things. And if they don't realize that they're natural biological things that are going to happen to every woman, they start to have this, oh my gosh, I'm getting old, I'm breaking down, I'm not as appealing, I'm not as sexy, and that goes to, I'm not as relevant, and I can't do things anymore. And it's a terrible path to go down.
What's my purpose?
What's my purpose? And so
they get loaded with the ants, the automatic negative thoughts.
Yeah.
When estrogen goes lower, the ant population goes up.
Yes, so much happens. That just started happening to me not that long ago. And I'm sort of late going into it, actually. But I'm like, wait, why do I just have no drive? Like I've always been highly driven. I mean, I've got like 2 different black belts and 2 different arts. And all of a sudden I'm like, like whatever. But so I have to push myself. And like you said, everything just begins to change, so.
Well, and getting that tape measure. So I actually measure everybody's waist, because
waist to height.
And they lie to you, because they'll go, oh, well, my waist
Put it
is
underneath
26. And I'm like, okay. And then I'll go, well, that's actually not, the tape measure says 34. Or I did one really well-known pastor. He's like, oh, it's 40. And I'm like, it's 48. You're 4 feet around.
Wow, when you think about it that
really important.
Waist to height ratio.
Waist to height ratio is actually more important than your BMI or your body mass index. And with COVID-19, because of the chronic stress most people are experiencing, even if your weight is the same, your waistline is often expanding. Cool. And so it's a time to be thoughtful and careful.
Well, they're calling COVID-19 sort of like freshman 15.
I hear that from women all the time on Facebook. And so then that stresses them out.
Right.
So I kind of feel like I have to be that annoying little gnat that's there all the time to all the women who follow me, that's going to say, okay, I don't mean to be annoying again, but all you need to do, like, even just go outside and walk and let that sunshine. You can't sleep at night, get the sunshine in the morning so that you get your clock back on schedule. Mm-hmm. And I think women especially just really need that motivation. And obviously I can only speak for women.
So we're alike in many ways, because I often say I want to be the little voice in your head that helps you do the right thing. And when people email me or text me and said, when I went to make that decision, I heard you say, make one decision, not 30. Like, if they're going to buy the ice cream at the store, it's like, well, then you're going to make 30 decisions, not 2 or 2 eat it. So better to make that one lever decision. What was the intention behind writing Why Did I Come Into This Room?
I had been working on a book for a few years, because everybody always used to say, how do you stay so, young and vibrant looking? I thought, so that's the book I should write, live younger, longer. And it just wasn't fitting me. And then finally, I said, it's not a matter of living younger, longer. It's a matter of living the most vital, your life with vitality and energy and passion and effervescence at each point of your life. So I said, I need to write a book about aging. Many, many years ago, I'd written like 3 books and they'd all been bestsellers, and a publisher came to me and said, all right, we want you to write another book. And I remember I went to my agent, my book agent, and I said, when you finish a book, you feel like you kind of just squeezed every last thought out of your brain and you have nothing else to say for a while. I don't even know what I want to write about next. And he said, you will always write about that which you want to know more about. And he was so right. And if I always just keep that perspective and say, like, I'm like a lot of the women out there that follow me. So what do we want to know about? And the obvious answer was we wanted to know about the aging process. The more, to me, knowledge is power. And so I wanted to give them the knowledge. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And as soon as I figured out what it was, I mean, it just came pouring out of my brain onto the page. And I knew what experts to go to. And I have a wonderful friend who works with me, and I would let her see it. And she kept saying, why? Or where's the evidence for this? And so I like dig a little farther. But I think that the thing that bothers us the most of all the things that happen to you as you age, as a man or a woman, is when you start not being able to remember things. And that's why I chose, and my husband says, you can't call this, why did I come into this room? Even when I went to take the picture, you'll know that I didn't take a beauty picture. I was like, what? I want
But you're still beautiful.
And so, because I wanted it to really speak to people, like, I'm going to share with you and what I've learned. And this is the most worrisome, but I was also happy to learn that when most people say that, why did I come into this room? And of course, the first thing when you're 20, you don't think anything of it. But when you're 50 or 60, you think, uh-oh, is this the beginning of something bad? And most of the time it's not. Most of the time, as doctor will tell us, it's just natural aging. But there again, we can do something about that.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of natural aging.
Right.
I'm fighting it every step of the way. When we come back, we're going to talk about memory and what are the things you can do to enhance your memory.
So please post if you learned anything. We want to know what you've learned. We want to hear your questions, your comments. We would love to get a review from you at brainwarriorswaypodcast.com. And be sure to pick up a copy of Joan Lunden's book at any major outlet where you can buy books. Why did I come into this room? And we're just having so much fun talking about this. And we will be back.
Welcome back. We are here with Joan Lunden having a fabulous time talking about her new book, Why Did I Come Into This Room? Joan,
Yes.
So many people complain about memory, and Alzheimer's is expected to triple in the next 25 years. And if you're blessed to live to 85, you have a 50% chance, 50% chance of being diagnosed with dementia of one form or another. I know you're not okay with those odds, and neither am I. But the exciting thing is you can do something about it. In your research, what were some of the most important factors that you learned about aging and memory?
Well, besides the obvious, which is eating healthy, as clean as possible, nutrient-dense proteins, lots of vegetables and fruits, and also not gorging yourself. Like, those are the obvious, but also drinking alcohol and smoking, some of these things, to stay away from them, which is, just making good lifestyle choices. And then challenging your brain. And they say that the best way is to learn something completely new, a new language, a new instrument, something new, something you didn't know before. Because as Dr. Amen will tell us, there was a time when the experts thought that we were born with our certain amount of neurons and that was it. And that was it. And then they started deteriorating. Now we know that we can grow new neurons. So if you challenge your brain, you can grow new neurons. But the neurons that you create with exercise, those are the neurons that are the most adept, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Amen, those are the ones that are the most adept at connecting to the central system. And that's really what they want. That's what they need to do. So as soon as I learned that going out and doing my power walk and my jog wasn't just for my waistline, it was to keep my cognitive thinking, and that was the best way, man, I couldn't put my sneakers on fast enough. So, that's what I try these days to make sure that I do, that I get in that exercise, like really good aerobic exercise, and that I challenge my brain. My choice of brain challenges are jigsaw puzzles. And the problem is I've gotten so good at them that I don't think they're challenging enough anymore. So then I picked up this book of crossword puzzles and I thought, I've never done crossword puzzles. Like, I don't know why, but I've never done them. So I tried one and I was horrible. And I thought, great, this is a fabulous brain teaser, something I'm not really that good at. But, I'm just always trying to do something new and different and to challenge my brain. Because my mom had dementia. My mom we started seeing signs of it maybe late 70s, really, I think it was the early 80s maybe. But, she dealt with dementia. She didn't die until she was almost 95. And she was pretty healthy until the end. But that loss of cognitive thinking and that dementia that set in, it ruled her life in her last, 5 to 8 years.
You mentioned one thing when you talked about exercise. One of the reasons exercise we know is the fountain of youth is because it releases something called BDNF, which is just so important, not only for keeping us young, but also for your brain health. So maybe you want to talk to them a little bit about BDNF in the brain and exercise, because it's just such an important.
That stands for brain-derived
neurotrophic
factor, neurotrophic growing the brain. So exercise
one of the
does
best
that.
Ways.
But what you were talking about is so smart. It's exercise and new learning. And if you can do new learning while you're exercising, it actually is stronger.
Which is why I love martial arts, because now I don't get hit in the head. I don't want them to hit me in the head. I like to hit other people, but I don't like to get hit. But it's because it's so complicated. It's complex moves, right? It's really great.
It's the same thing I do. I have a trainer, and some days we do hip hop classes, and some days we do like aerobics, but we're listening to her give us the cue of what to do. Our brain then has to tell our body to do it. And that is the best kind of exercise. Like earlier today, I did a 45-minute Tabata. And, that's hits training, high intensive interval training. So you do real intense, 20 seconds, then rest for 10, intense for 20, rest for 10. And you do that for 8 times. And then you go on to the next exercise and you do 8 exercises. And you're listening to this person, and anyone can go online and Google Tabata, Tabata. It was developed by the Japanese. The guy's last name was Tabata. And you can find all different ones. You can pick the music you like. You can have the intervals be, a minute if you want, although that's going to kill you, let me tell you. But, 15, 10, 20, 10, pick up some music that you like. And once you click go, it will tell you everything to do. It will say, get ready for Tabata 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, workout. And at 15, 20 seconds, it'll say, Tabata 1 completed, rest for 10 minutes. It will take you right through it. So it's really a no-brainer. You can do it on your laptop, your phone, whatever. But they really do. That really pumps that oxygen and all those nutrients and all that BDNF, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's and that's the same BDNF. Yeah. And brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
They actually found high intensity training increases the number of mitochondria in your cells. Mitochondria are the little energy power plants in each of your cells. So if you struggle with low energy, I mean, yes, you should measure your thyroid and optimize your thyroid, but high intensity training can actually elevate your energy over time. And it's totally something you can do at home. So you don't have to have the excuse, oh, the gym's closed, I can't do that.
And we know that because people when they don't exercise, they're like, oh, I just don't feel good. And if they can just make themselves do it for a week, that they ought.
And
people who exercise
just a few minutes
have more energy. They just feel better, right?
And they actually looked at people who exercise for an hour versus those who exercise for just a few minutes. With high intensity training, they got the same
the HIIT
benefit.
training. So we do Tabata in martial arts, and it is addictive. Like it's addictive because it just makes you feel so good.
And in a way, it's a no-brainer because you're listening. All you have to do is
big brainer.
Yeah, that's right. I couldn't say no-brainer to you. I think back to when I was at Good Morning America and I was turning 40, and I had 3 children. I hadn't lost the weight, all the weight from each one, and I knew I needed to lose weight. I was just exhausted all the time. Yeah. But I used to say to myself, God, I'm so exhausted now. I can't possibly work out. I'll even be more exhausted. But then I just completely, I took the years, I turned 39. I said between 39 and 40, I'm changing my life. I had seen the cover of a magazine. It had the Charlie's Angels on it. Remember that? Farrah Fawcett and all of them, Jacqueline. And it said, fit, fabulous, and 40. And I said, I want to be that. And I took that year from 39 to 40. And I'm telling you that I transformed not just my body, I transformed my life because I was then in charge of my energy level instead of my energy level being in charge of my life. Yeah. And I found all of a sudden, even though it was hard in the beginning, that I'd come out of the gym, I'd be bouncing off the walls. I'd be so full of energy. And I would never have thought that.
And you sleep better.
I slept better. I mean, and I got to tell you, what had happened with that? Well, when I was 29 years old, I got married, and I married a guy who was 39 years old. Didn't work out, 3 great kids, but we got divorced. And 20 years later, when I was 49, I got married again. And again, I married a guy who was 39. She got the math. So you tell me. What I did is that when you all of a sudden have all this energy and you are happy with yourself, there's exuberance for life that comes out of you. Yeah. There's a shininess, your eyes sparkle, your skin glows, all these things. And what it does is it attracts other people. Yeah. So it's got to start inside you.
Well, I've been sitting here thinking you are beautiful and you exude this, not just energy, there's a confidence about you. And there's nothing more beautiful with women. So you are fortunate, you are blessed, you were born beautiful. But what's more beautiful is when that comes out, because you see a lot of beautiful women who don't have that. And it's sad when you see that because it sort of like shuts them down. But even if a woman is just somewhat attractive, but she's got that, it's just beautiful and it attracts people. So
even doing Good Morning America, I knew that every morning at 7 a.m. that my effusiveness, my happiness for the day, that was going to be the first thing that would affect you at home, even before whatever news I had to deliver. So when I left my dressing room, I remember I used to always get down every morning and do like 20 sit-ups because it just makes you sit up straighter. Yeah. And I looked in the mirror and I smiled. I put that smile on my face. Then I was like ready to leave my dressing room, go down, put my mic on, and be ready at 7 to say, Good Morning America, in a way that really affected people that were at home dealing with, whatever they were dealing with, trying to get kids up and ready for school and get breakfast on the table. And like here we were in your house, you wouldn't have had your best friend over. Right. But I knew that was important. And I think that everyone can take away this. When you wake up in the morning, before you get out of bed, before you put your feet on the floor, tell yourself, this is going to be an awesome day. Because the most important things you say all day long are the things you say to yourself. Yep. And if you start that day out saying, I'm going to have a great time today and I'm going to accomplish things or whatever it is you want to do, tell yourself before you put your feet on the floor.
I love
that. It's one of the tiny habits in the end of mental illness. Today is going to be a great day.
He wakes up in the morning, and to the kids, he always asks them, why is today going to be a great day? He makes them answer. And they're like sitting there looking at him. He's like, no, you actually have to answer me.
And at dinner, we go, what went well today? Because where you bring your attention always determines how you feel. Stay with us. We'll be back one more time with Joan Lunden, author of Why Did I Come Into This Room? Available anywhere great books are sold. Stay with us.
At Amen Clinics, we're creating a revolution in psychiatry. All other medical specialists look at the organ they treat before they treat it, but most psychiatrists never look and end up guessing based on whatever symptoms you tell them. But how do you know unless you look? Brain SPECT imaging gives us a new way to look at your brain to understand and treat your symptoms so you can ultimately know what is going on and feel better.
Welcome back. We are here still with the beautiful, ever beautiful Joan Lunden, and we're talking about her book, Why Did I Come Into This Room? We are having so much fun. So we would love for you to post what you have learned, what you want to learn, what your questions are, your concerns. What's been concerning you about aging? Are you having trouble with remembering why you came into a room? Post it, tag us, go to brainwarriorswaypodcast.com, leave us a review. We would be ever so grateful. In fact, we will enter you into a drawing for either my cookbook or Daniel's book, The End of Mental Illness, whichever you choose. But we're just having such a great time. And I have to just tell you, Joan, you are magnificent. You're just so much fun and you are just so vital. I mean, obviously, whatever you're doing, I'm glad you put it in a book because you're just amazing.
Well, I remember when I was writing one of my first books, I had gone through this transformation from 39 to 40. I decided one day. Well, actually, I remember we had a representative from the American Heart Association on the show, and they had this little quiz. And so I was, we were going through all the questions in the quiz for people in the audience to assess their risk for cardiovascular disease. And I'm like, inactive, eating the wrong things. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm failing this test. And it was almost like, it's funny because it was the AHA. It was my aha moment. It truly was. And I said to myself in that moment, what do I want to be in 20 years? I don't want to be watching from the sidelines. I want to be in the race. I still want to be vital. I still want to be fit. I want to be in charge of my life. And I literally made a decision and I took it on as almost another job. I think but what comes out of that is that you can't just let all these good things that we're talking about just maybe happen. Mm-hmm. Make appointments with yourself. Like I make appointments. I make sure I know when my workouts are. I get up in the morning and I put on, I tend to like to work out better in the morning. I think there's some science behind that as well. But I'll put my workout clothes on. I'm way more inclined to work out if I'm in the clothes and my clothes are saying to me, hey, weren't you supposed to go work out? Because what you're wearing says so. And I make appointments with myself to do things. I make an appointment with myself to clean out a desk. How about that one? I shared that one on Facebook and then I really had to do it. But if you make appointments with yourself, I think that then look at them and say, this is just as important as an important business meeting. Mm-hmm. Like give them some credence, give them some importance, and then go to your appointments. And after a couple of days of doing that, I mean, I do that even like water. I mean, I just was a bad water drinker and it's incredibly vital, not, for how our body works, for how our brain works, for everything. And so I remember a fitness trainer of mine, she gave me these 10 little thin rubber bracelets that you get like on Oriental Trading. She said, put these on in the morning. and I want them all on the other arm by the time you go to bed, because you're not being honest with yourself. You say, have I had enough to drink today? Oh, I think so. Like maybe a glass of water. So now I had to have accountability with myself. I learned really fast. You better have half of them over there by about 1 or 2 o'clock, because if you try to move them all over at 6 o'clock at night, you're going to be up all night. But there's so much that if you learn how your body works and you understand it, and you understand that, are you really waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to pee? Maybe not. Maybe you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning because that's the time that your thyroid has its chance to do all of its replenishing, and it can't because you've been stressed out all day long. And I forget what it needs to run, but in order to do that, it has to create adrenaline. And that creation of adrenaline that's what's waking you up. And then you're awake, and then you have to go pee. Instead, find ways to manage your stress, and don't just power your thyroid with bad food, fats, and sugars. Be nice to it. I literally, you know how they say, talk to plants? Now, I could talk to a plant and it'll still die. But Marie Kondo, who wrote the book that says how to organize your whole house, and you talk to your underwear. And I thought she was such a cuckoo. And then I thought, well, wait a second. Let me see if it works. I started going around the house and I'd say, do I use that anymore? Not really. I haven't used it for the last 3 years. And then she says, thank it for its service, and then get rid of it. It's because clutters up your brain. So, I just found that if I started telling myself and talking to myself, and I literally sometimes when I'm having my warm water with lemon in the morning when I get up before coffee or anything else, I'm saying, I'm being nice to you, thyroid. I'm being nice to you. I'm massaging you. I'm giving you a good start to your day. It's like what you always say, Dr. Amen. If you're saying it, it brings your consciousness there. And so you live your life throughout the day, not wanting to clog up your thyroid. And I just found that by starting to put my attention to some of even my organs in my body and say, I want them to work properly. And I think it helps you. It helps you whether you say yes to that chocolate sundae after dinner. It helps you when you say, yes, I want the broccoli, because I know that that's one of the things that can help my longevity and help my health. It's just kind of getting your head in the right place.
Well, ultimately, it's about love.
Life happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about love. You're doing the right things because you love yourself. You love your husband. You love your children. You love the mission. And, choosing the wrong thing. Yes, short-term happiness, but long-term trouble. Mm-hmm. And both of you had cancer. So you know what it's like to come face to face with your mortality. And it's not what you want, right? And so we all have to make trade-offs, right? I love Rocky Road ice cream, but it doesn't love me back. In fact, I'm used to be in an abusive relationship with Rocky Road ice cream. And I'm not going to do it. I'm going to break, I was in a marriage that was terrible for 20 years, and I'm not doing that again. And I'm damn sure not doing it with food, right? Yeah. I have someone I adore who adores me back. So I'm really blessed. But, you have to work on it in order to have a great relationship. You have to work on it to have that relationship with your own body. And it's ultimately, it's not deprivation. When you miss, I can't have all this alcohol, or I can't have these donuts. It's just the wrong mindset. It's, I get to have the broccoli because it gives me what I want, which is energy.
Well, and the cupcake or the donut or whatever is depriving me of what I want, which is my mission. And you've talked about this amazing life.
Yeah.
It's this that would deprive me if I feel tired or sick or, if I just don't have the energy and the vitality to maintain, to be able to do all these things, it's deprivation.
And then to live it, you actually have to give it. And by you writing, why did I come into this room? It just reinforces, I don't want dementia like my mom got. And I always say, if you knew a train was going to hit you, would you get out of the way? And people don't really understand that Alzheimer's is not something that just happens to you. It's you often invited it into your life by how you lived, by what you ate, by the toxins you put into your body. And it's something we have way more control over. And it's also why we're never going to get one medicine to fix Alzheimer's, because it's not one thing. There's not one road to
like
it.
breast cancer. I never realized before I got breast cancer that it's not one disease. It's a lot of different diseases. And that's why now they've come to learn that it's personalized medicine, but it's finding out now we can actually test the tumor and find out which medicines will work and which won't work. And those are advances that have even come about since I was diagnosed. And I was diagnosed 6 years ago. So, and I had a very fast growing cancer. So fortunately, I now know that that cancer isn't coming back. If it would have, it would have. But that doesn't mean you can't still get another kind of cancer. So we always have to be just really doing everything that we can to make sure that we don't get ourselves in a situation where we put ourselves at risk for cardiovascular disease or any other chronic illness.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the American Cancer Society come out with a position against alcohol? I was so impressed.
I was.
Because usually societies like that don't take really big positions, but they're like, any drinking is a risk factor for cancer.
Well, if you look there's a wonderful book called The Blue Zones by a guy named Daniel Lunden, and he wrote another one that I love, Thriving in the Blue Zones. But he got a grant from the World Health Organization to go out into the world and find out what populations lived exponentially longer. And he identified 5. One of them is Loma Linda, California.
That's where I went to school.
Did you go to Loma Linda University?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My dad.
I worked there. I worked at the University Medical Center for years.
I gave the commencement address there to the graduating medical school about 5 years ago on the 75th anniversary of my father getting his medical degree there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
The best job offer I ever had. I loved doing that. But why is that one of the blue zones in the world, that one little place?
Where it's smoggier than anywhere, right?
But we know why. It's because of what they eat. They're vegetarians. It's because they don't smoke. They don't drink. They don't do drugs. They don't have
life of temperance.
It's a life of not always kind of skirting the edges. And when you do that, you don't have as much stress and you sleep better. They live a life that lets them live exponentially longer than the rest of the population. And we can learn from that.
I have to tell you, I love that you brought that up, because when I worked at the medical center, so I'm not Seventh-day Adventist, but I went to school there. And so at first I was thinking, what am I getting myself into? I had no idea, because I had heard they don't drink caffeine, they don't eat meat. And I'm like, what? Are you out of your mind? So I used to show up to school with my thermos thing full of caffeine. And I'm like, yeah, this is not going to work, because there's nowhere in that town at that time you could buy coffee. I'm sure now you can, but I'm like, that ain't going to work for me. So these long days, doing clinicals, no, that's not going to work. So then I started working at the medical center. But keep in mind, I also had cancer. I wasn't all that healthy. I was a really unhealthy kid, like really unhealthy. So I started working at the medical center, and I'm working in the unit that is, we have basically the sickest people in the hospital. It was neurosurgical, ICU, and trauma. And so we would get the overflow, though, from the medical ICU occasionally. And I started seeing these 95-year-old, 103-year-old Seventh-day Adventists come in, sometimes from their first medical incidents, with no medications, or maybe one medication that they were on. And I was like, and they'd have no lines on their face. And I'm like, that's just creepy. Like, that's just weird. What's happening here? It was so odd to me to see these people look, and maybe they came in because they were in an accident, or, you know, they finally had something happen at 103. But I was like, this is odd. Like, this is weird to see. And that's when it struck me, because all through school, I kept hearing about this life of temperance. You know, we don't live a life of temperance where everything's balanced and we don't eat meat and we meditate, we pray, we walk, we do all this stuff, and we don't drink alcohol. And I'm like, that's just odd. And then all of a sudden it struck me, duh, that's why these people are living to 103.
And, you know, they found that in a lot of the other places, Sardinia and some of the other places that were found to be blue zones, it wasn't just that they ate, and a lot of them ate Mediterranean style, if you will, that kind of diet, and that they walked instead of taking a car. Right. It was also because they were a community.
Family.
Safety and comfort and love, belonging to a community. They were involved in the church. They had a real sense of family. They always ate together at night and talked, and they didn't live this fast pace. You know, we don't have anybody home at the same time tonight because this one's got football practice, this one's got tennis practice, and this one's got this. They all came together, and there was this time that they smiled and talked about their day. That's those are some of the differences. It's not just because of what they ate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the blessings from the pandemic for so many families is they're not running like crazy as they did before, and they have more bonding.
I never felt more rested
with their loved ones. Joan, what a joy. Thank you so much for being on the Brain Warriors Way podcast. If you learned anything, hopefully some great things, write them down and post them on any of your social media sites. We'd love for you to go to brainwarriorswaypodcast.com and write us a review or questions. We're going to spend time answering questions. And we'll enter you into drawing to win the Brain Warriors Way cookbook, Tana's great cookbook, which you should send to Joan.
I should.
And also The End of Mental Illness. Joan, thank you so much.
Such a pleasure, such an honor.
It was absolutely my pleasure. Thanks.
If you're enjoying the Brain Warriors Way podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, feel free to give us a review or 5-star rating, as that helps others find the podcast.
If you're considering coming to Amen Clinics or trying some of the brain healthy supplements from BrainMD, you can use the code podcast10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com, or a 10% discount on all supplements at brainmdhealth.com. For more information, give us a call at 855-978-1363.